In the quiet villages of Britain, far from the cities and the noise, people whisper about children who knock on doors after midnight. Pale faces, colorless lips, and empty black hollows where their eyes should be. No one knows where they come from, but everyone who opened the door for them has disappeared. So, tell me, if you heard a child knocking your door at 2:47 a.m., begging to come in, would you open it? The story begins in the English countryside, in a small fog-covered village called Hawthorne Edge, a place so quiet you could hear the wind brushing the old wooden fences. Most of its houses were built in the 1800s, with narrow hallways, stone chimneys, and roofs that creaked when the night grew too cold. Not many young people lived there anymore. Only the old, the tired, and those who wanted isolation. Among them was Eliza Warren, a 32-year-old school teacher who had moved to the village only 3 months earlier. She wanted a peaceful life after a traumatic accident in London, something she never discussed with anyone. But peace is not what she found. The night everything began. It was a Thursday, cold, silent. A mist rolled across the fields like a living thing, covering the ground in a white blanket. Eliza sat in her small living room, grading her students' homework. The only lights came from a dim lamp on the table and the burning logs in her fireplace. The clock on the wall ticked, 2:47 a.m. She felt an odd pressure on her chest, a feeling of being watched. Then, knock, knock, knock. Soft, slow, too gentle to be an adult, too late to be a visitor. Eliza froze. Another knock. This one was slightly louder. She stood up cautiously, her fingers trembling as she approached the door. Through the frost-covered glass, she saw a small, blurry silhouette. A child, maybe 8 or 9 years old, standing perfectly still. She hesitated, her breath fogging the cold air. "Hello?" The child didn't answer. Instead, a small voice whispered, "Miss, can you let me in? I can't see." A chill ran down her spine. The child with no eyes. Eliza unlocked the chain, but didn't open the door fully, only a small gap. The child slowly lifted its face. Pale skin, lips almost blue, and where the eyes should be, 2 perfect black hollows, deep, empty, as if someone had carved them out. Eliza gasped and stepped back. The child didn't react, just raised its head further and said, "Please, let me in. I need help." Eliza slammed the door shut instantly, locking every bolt. She stumbled backward, heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear the child's next sentence. "You already saw me. Now you must let me in." The knocking grew harder, faster, not frantic, demanding. Then suddenly, silence. Nothing. The fog outside swallowed the figure completely. Eliza collapsed on her couch, shaking uncontrollably. She stayed awake until sunrise. But that was only the beginning. The next day, the warning. That morning, the villagers acted strangely, whispering, avoiding eye contact. Doors shut, windows locked even though it was daytime. Eliza walked into the small cafe near the main road. The owner, an elderly woman named Margaret Finch, stared at her with worry. "You look pale, dear. Didn't sleep?" Eliza hesitated. Should she tell her? She nodded. "It was a child at my door, with no—" Margaret didn't let her finish. Her face drained of color. "You must not talk about them out loud. Not here, not ever." Eliza frowned. "You know something?" "Everyone here does. We call them the hollow children. They come to houses of newcomers first. They test you." "Test me for what?" "For weakness." Margaret leaned closer. "If you open the door, you vanish. If you refuse, they mark you." Eliza's blood ran cold. "Mark me for what?" But the old woman refused to answer. Strange things begin happening. That night, Eliza heard footsteps outside her house. Small ones, soft ones. But every time she peered through the window, no one was there. Her electricity flickered. Whispers echoed in the hallway. Her cat, Misty, hissed at corners of the room where nothing stood. And then, 3 days later, she noticed something on her front door. A symbol scratched into the wood. A circle with 2 hollow dots inside it. The face of a child without eyes. She ran to Margaret's cafe in a panic. "They marked me. Why? What does it mean?" Margaret took a deep breath. "It means they chose you." "For what?" The old woman looked at her with deep regret. "For the next disappearance." A hidden room in Eliza's house. That night, unable to relax, Eliza began searching her house for anything unusual. She pushed aside furniture, checked behind old wallpapers, and followed strange drafts coming from the walls. Then she found it. A small door, hidden behind a loose wooden panel in the hallway, barely the size of a child. She pulled it open with shaking hands. Inside was a narrow crawl space, dark, dusty, smelling of earth and something rotten. She aimed her flashlight inside. There were drawings scratched into the wooden walls, dozens of them, children's drawings, all showing the same thing: a child with no eyes, standing outside houses, standing next to beds, standing behind people. And under each drawing, a date, some from the 1990s, some from 1971, some from 2 weeks ago, before she even moved in. Then she found one drawing that froze her heart, a drawing of her house, her windows, her garden, her front door, and under it written with trembling letters, "She is next." Eliza dropped the flashlight and stumbled out of the crawlspace, gasping for breath. But as she backed away, she heard something inside the darkness. A child's voice. "You should have let me in." The voice wasn't outside this time. It was inside her house. If you hear children humming outside your window after midnight, don't look, because the moment you see their eyeless faces, they will know that you can see them, and then they will never stop following you. The freezing wind scraped against Oliver's skin like invisible claws as he stood outside the abandoned farmhouse. The memory of those 2 children, the ones with smooth, empty skin where their eyes should have been, kept replaying in his mind. Their whispering voices still clung to his ears. "We're lost. Let us in." The village police didn't believe him. The neighbors didn't want to speak about it, and the priest only crossed himself and muttered a single sentence: "The eyeless ones are returning." Oliver couldn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the children standing at his door, their heads tilted, their mouths stretching into impossible wide smiles. At 3:12 a.m., an old sound returned to the village, a hollow metallic ring echoing through the fields. Clink, 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 like someone striking a lantern with their fingernail. Oliver froze. The story said that sound meant one thing: another child had been taken. The whispering wind. The next morning, Oliver walked to the crossroads where villagers had gathered in terrified silence. A young girl, Eleanor Pike, had vanished from her bedroom. No signs of struggle, no footprints, just a cold, open window and a small smear of soot as if something black and burned had brushed against the sill. A whisper ran through the crowd. "Wish she followed the lantern with no bearer." Oliver's heart pounded. He remembered something his grandmother told him when he was young, a warning whispered in the dark during storms. "If you see a floating lantern in the fields, never follow it. It belongs to the children without eyes." Back then he laughed, but now that laughter died inside him. He began investigating the old parish records, and in dusty archives forgotten by everyone except spiders, he found what he didn't expect. This was not the first time, nor the second. It was the 10th documented cycle. Every 25 years, Britain's countryside, especially the fog-choked villages, reported the same phenomenon. Eyeless children wandering at night, knocking on doors, humming old nursery rhymes, dragging new victims into the mist. Journal entries from 1894 described them perfectly. Children pale as moonlight, with hollow skin for eyes. They follow a lantern that floats by itself, and once you hear their humming, you are already chosen. Oliver felt a chill travel down his spine, but one detail in the last entry horrified him the most. They were once children of our own village, changed by the black fog ritual. He didn't know what the ritual was, but he knew one thing. Eleanor Pike was still alive, and if she was taken by the eyeless children, she would be transformed soon. The night they came for him. Oliver slept with a knife under the pillow. At 1:03 a.m., a soft humming rose outside. A twisted, broken melody of an old English lullaby. Oliver turned off the lights and crawled to the window, peeking through the curtain with trembling hands. What he saw made his blood stop. 4 children stood in his garden, their skin pale like candle wax, their heads slowly jerking side to side, their mouths stretching into impossible wide smiles. And behind them floated a lantern, rusty, cracked, and swinging gently, although no one held it. The children smiled. Not with joy, but with hunger. One of them, a little girl with braided hair, raised her hand and pointed directly at Oliver's window. Her smile widened, splitting the skin at the corners of her mouth. Her voice was not a child's voice anymore. It was layered with something old, ancient, wrong. "We know you read about us, Oliver." He stumbled backward in horror. How could they know?
The lantern swung violently, as if signaling command, and the children began walking toward his door, slowly, synchronized, like puppets tied to the same invisible string. Thump, thump, thump. Small fists began knocking, soft but persistent. "Let us in, Oliver. We brought you someone." The voice was new, small, weak, a child's voice he recognized instantly. Eleanor Pike. But she shouldn't be able to speak, not if she had already been taken, unless she wasn't transformed yet. Oliver's shaking hand reached toward the doorknob, not to open it, but to push the lock deeper, when something slid through the mail slot. Not a letter, not a hand. Something small, cold, and wet fell onto the floor. Oliver lifted it hesitantly. It was a child's eyeless doll, but its wood was warm, and its eyelids twitched. Then Oliver heard Eleanor's voice again. "Oliver, please hurry before they finish me." Where Oliver discovers what the black fog ritual truly is, and why the eyeless children are choosing him.
Every missing child in that British village had one thing in common. They didn't scream. Because the eyeless ones remove your voice before they take your soul. Oliver stood frozen, the twitching eyeless doll still in his hand, its warm wooden skin pulsing like a dying heartbeat. Outside, the knocking grew louder. Small fists hit in wood in slow, rhythmic unity. Thump, thump, thump. The children's voices seeped through the cracks in the door, layered and distorted, rising and falling like a chant. "Let us in, Oliver. She needs you, before the fog takes her." Eleanor's voice was weaker now, trembling. "Oliver, please." Something inside Oliver snapped. Fear gave way to urgency. He wasn't going to sit in the dark while a little girl begged for her life. He crept to the back exit, slipped into the fog-soaked fields, and headed toward the old church archives, the only place that held answers. The church caretaker was the only man awake at 2:30 a.m. A hunched figure with trembling hands, white eyebrows, and eyes filled with secrets he wished he didn't know. "Child came for you, didn't they?" he whispered before Oliver could speak. Oliver nodded. The caretaker sighed, unlocked a wooden chest sealed by iron chains, and pulled out an ancient dust-covered book. Its leather cover was engraved with a symbol, a lantern with children kneeling beneath it. "This," he rasped, "is the original record from 1672, the year the ritual began." He opened the book. Oliver felt the temperature drop instantly. The first cycle, 1672. The record told a horrifying story. A plague once swept through the countryside, killing hundreds of children. In desperation, a grieving mother named Agnes Hallow, a woman accused of witchcraft, attempted a forbidden ritual to bring her son back. She mixed soot, fog, and the ashes of graveyard soil, and lit a lantern that burned black flame. The ritual worked. Her child returned, but he returned wrong. He came back eyeless, silent, and hungry. That night, he took 5 more children so they could see for him. And every generation since, they returned. But the book held one more chilling detail.
Only one chosen by the lantern may break the cycle. Oliver stepped back. I'm the chosen one? The caretaker shook his head slowly. No, you weren't chosen. You were marked. He pointed to the eyeless doll still in Oliver's coat pocket. That doll isn't a message. It's a bond. You accepted it. Now they see through you. Oliver felt a stabbing pain behind his eyes, a deep, burning pressure. The caretaker whispered, "Don't let them inside your mind, or they'll take your sight from within." A low rumbling echoed outside. The caretaker turned pale. "They're here." Fog began pouring into the churchyard, inky black, rolling across the ground like a living creature. It climbed up the stone walls, slithered through cracks, and whispered with 1,000 children's voices. Oliver backed away. The caretaker pushed him toward a narrow stairwell. "Down to the crypt. If they reach you here, they'll claim you." "But what about Eleanor?" Oliver shouted. The caretaker grabbed his shoulders. "You can still save her, but only by stopping the ritual before she becomes one of them." "How long do I have?" The caretaker hesitated. "Once the fog fully covers the village, she will lose her voice. Next, her eyes. Finally, her memories." Oliver clenched his fists. He had to reach her first. The ghost in the crypt. Oliver dashed into the crypt, carrying a lantern and the old book. But as he descended the stone staircase, he heard something breathing behind him. Slow, wet, childlike. He spun around. No children, just fog. But inside the fog, shapes moved. The lantern flickered violently. Oliver whispered, "No, no, you're not real." A voice rose from the darkness, a soft, trembling voice. Eleanor, but not the Eleanor he remembered. This was changing. "Oliver, I can't see anymore." Oliver's heart dropped. "They're taking me. Please, hurry." Her voice cracked, deepening, warping. "Before they finish." Silence. Then another voice replaced hers, cold, hollow, and ancient. "Find her if you dare." Fog exploded outward, knocking Oliver to the floor. When he stood, the crypt walls were changing, letters forming on the stone, glowing in sickly white light. The black fog ritual must be repeated, or the curse consumes all. Oliver clenched his jaw. They want me to perform the ritual? No, they want me to complete what the witch began. But beneath the glowing letters, another line scratched in much later by a shaking hand. "Do not repeat it. Destroy the lantern, and the children will return to rest." 2 choices, 2 endings, and no time left. The lantern appears. A soft light filled the end of the corridor. The lantern, the same lantern the eyeless children followed, floating silently, glowing with dull orange embers. It drifted toward him like a predator. Oliver tightened his grip on the knife. The lantern whispered, "Finish what she started, and we will give the girl back." Oliver's mind raced. If he obeyed, he risked unleashing something unspeakable. If he refused, Eleanor would be lost forever. The lantern floated right up to his face. Choose, where Oliver makes the final terrible decision that will end the cycle or doom the entire village.
If a child with black, empty sockets ever whispers your name, Run. Because once they know who you are, they never stop hunting, alive or dead. If these children knocked on your door tonight, would you let them in? Snow hammered the small British village like a fist from the sky. Thomas sat alone in the dark police archive room, staring at the only remaining evidence left in the case. A photograph. A photograph of children without eyes, smiling. Their hollow sockets were carved too cleanly, too perfectly symmetrical. No wounds, no blood, just darkness, living darkness. Thomas was trembling. The deeper he studied the image, the more he felt the same sensation Eleanor felt before her disappearance. Breathing. Cold breathing. Right behind him. He turned. No one was there, but the room smelled like damp soil and something else. Children's clothing, wet wool, rotten milk, old metal swings. The same scent Eleanor described. He whispered to himself, "They're real. They've always been real." The truth about the black-eyed children. Thomas finally found something hidden in an old sealed file, long buried by the British Ministry of Welfare, dated 1894. A rural orphanage, 24 children, a fire nobody investigated. The building burned in silence because the villagers locked the doors from the outside. The orphanage was accused of harboring cursed children, children born with deformities, children abandoned by parents, children who were never loved. The villagers believed them to be demonic, so they burned them alive. But the file contained one final note, handwritten with a shaking hand. They do not die. They return as they were, searching for the love they were denied, and punishing those who deny them again. And suddenly, everything made sense. The knocking on doors, the pleading voices, the emotionless faces, the endless cold. They weren't demons. They were orphans looking for warmth, for a home, for acceptance. If you refuse them, they relive their last moment, the feeling of being rejected, locked out, left to die, and they kill you for it. The children arrived. A violent knock shook the police station. Once, twice, 3 times. Thomas froze. His breath turned to ice. A whisper slid through the crack of the door, soft and trembling. "Can me come in? We're cold." He stepped back, terrified, praying he was hallucinating. But then tiny shadows pooled under the door, 4 of them, small silhouettes, standing unnaturally still. Another whisper. "We know your name, Thomas. You saw our picture." The lights flickered. He remembered the rule. Never look them in the eyes, never refuse them, never speak to them unless you must. But what could he do now? They were already inside the building. The metal door handle slowly began to turn. The final choice. Thomas grabbed Eleanor's old field recorder, the same one she dropped before she disappeared. He began recording. "If anyone finds this, the children are real. They are not monsters. They're the forgotten, the burned, the abandoned. If they knock, God help you. Choose carefully." The door creaked open. Cold air poured in. 4 pale children entered the room.
Skin gray, clothes burned, faces emotionless, and the eye sockets black, endless, alive. The smallest child stepped forward. "Thomas, will you let us in, or will you burn us too?" He cried. He shook, but then he did something no villager ever did. He opened his arms. "I'm sorry. I won't deny you." The children stared blankly, and for a moment the black inside their sockets trembled like liquid. Then they vanished. No sound, no movement, no cold. Nothing, just silence. The curse ended because someone finally accepted them. Thomas submitted the tape and retired from the case. But that night, as he prepared for sleep, someone knocked on his bedroom door. Soft, faint, childlike. "Thomas, we found another one who burned us. Can you come with us?" He froze. This time they didn't want acceptance. They wanted help. The black-eyed children finally stopped hunting the innocent and turned their hollow gazes toward the guilty. The curse lives on, but now Thomas walks with them in the dark. Some say he never left his house that night. Others swear they see him with the children on foggy British roads. But one thing is certain. If you hear knocking after midnight, don't answer, don't speak, don't breathe, and whatever you do, don't let them know your name. If you ever heard a knock like that, would you survive the night? If you are a fan of global horror, dark myths, and true terrifying legends, then subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell me in the comments which horror story you want next, before the children choose one for you.